The gun went off before the apology left my mouth. Or maybe the universe just had a twisted sense of timing. That was the exact moment I realized two things. One, life really didn't care about my attempts to play it safe. And two, I was officially done letting anyone leash me like some loyal pet. Not my old pack. Not my ex-alpha. And definitely not fate. My name is Elias Navarro, an Omega born into the Crescent Ridge Pack in Northern California. People like to say Omegas were fragile, soft, meant to be protected. I wasn't fragile. I was just tired. Tired of being controlled. Tired of pretending that being claimed by an alpha was the peak of my worth. Tired of acting like I didn't notice the way my so-called fated partner, Dominic Hale, chipped me apart piece by piece. Dominic wasn't always bad. At 17, he was the golden boy, the kind of alpha who could make you believe the world bowed at his feet. And back then, I believed it too. We were supposed to be a perfect match. Me, the calm center to his storm. Him, the future leader of Crescent Ridge. Everyone expected us to imprint. Everyone expected our bond to lock. But things change. People change. Sometimes the storm stops pretending it loves the calm. By the time I turned 22, love felt less like a promise and more like a collar. So I ran. Seattle was supposed to be a temporary refuge, a place where no one knew my name or my pack or the weight of my past. I worked in a cafe, shared a rundown apartment with a med student named Blake who collected mismatched socks, and pretended my life wasn't built on the ruins of expectations I never asked for. And everything stayed stable, quiet, manageable, until he walked into the cafe. Adrien Kincaid, the CEO of Kincaid Innovations, Silicon Valley darling, billionaire before 30, and the man Forbes loved putting on their cover. Everyone in America knew his name. No one knew the real him, except maybe me. He showed up wearing a suit worth more than my rent, holding a laptop under his arm like an afterthought, and ordering black coffee in the calmest voice I had ever heard. I didn't know CEOs sounded like that, like soft piano keys, like autumn fog. He also smelled like cedar and citrus and something impossibly warm. Not alpha, not beta, not omega. Human, untouched by the wolf world. A clean slate, and for the first time in years, my lungs worked properly. He started coming every morning. Every morning he sat at the same corner table. Every morning he ordered black coffee. Every morning he asked, "How's your day starting, Elias?" And every morning, I lied with a little less conviction. It was harmless, human. A life that didn't belong to the boy who had once been promised to an alpha he no longer loved. But for dominance like Dominic, losing something he thought he owned wasn't an option. When he found me, it was because of my sister. Mia was 16, brilliant, desperate to get away from pack politics. She had begged me to take her with me when I left, but I couldn't. If Dominic knew I had taken her, he would chase us both to the ends of the earth. So when she appeared outside my apartment building 3 months later, trembling, cheeks streaked with tears, I knew something was wrong before she even spoke. He said he'd hurt people if I didn't bring him to you. Dominic. Always Dominic. The bastard used my baby sister. He cornered us on the rooftop of my building just before sunset, the city stretching below us like a sprawling maze of neon and steel. And I made the mistake of thinking he just wanted to talk. He didn't want to talk. He wanted to reclaim. The moment he grabbed my arm, Mia screamed. He threatened to drag me back. He threatened to mark me again. He threatened to make sure no one else ever looked at me the way he believed only he could. And I hated that some tiny, broken part of me froze. But fate, or whatever cosmic force had been laughing at my misery, had one last twist to deliver. Because when the elevator dinged behind us, when the metal doors slid open, when footsteps echoed across the rooftop, it was Adrien Kincaid, holding 2 paper bags of takeout, face going pale as he took in the scene. Dominic's hand on my arm. Mia pressed into the wall. The fury I tried to bury for years bubbling up through the cracks. But it was the next part, the unexpected part, that changed everything. Because I stepped toward Adrien, and he reached for me, and without thinking, without caring that my ex-alpha was staring at us like he'd just witnessed betrayal written into the sky itself, I took Adrien's hand. Mia gasped. Dominic's face drained of color. Adrien's fingers tightened around mine like a lifeline. What the hell is this? Dominic choked out. My heartbeat hammered. My lungs burned. My fear clawed for escape. But I didn't let go. This, I said, voice shaking, is me choosing something that isn't you. Dominic's eyes flashed gold. Wolves didn't like losing. Alphas especially. His anger rolled off him in waves, the kind that used to make me flinch automatically. But Adrien didn't flinch. Adrien stepped in front of me. Take another step toward him, he said calmly, his voice a blade wrapped in velvet. And you'll regret it. Dominic laughed. You think a human scares me? I don't need to scare you, Adrien replied. I just need you to understand that he's not alone. He didn't say he belonged to me. He didn't say he was my alpha. He didn't say I was his omega. He said alone. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't. That should have been the end of the rooftop confrontation. But Dominic didn't come to Seattle for diplomacy. He came to take me back by force if necessary. So he lunged. And Adrien didn't move fast enough. I shoved Dominic away, but I wasn't strong enough. He grabbed my wrist. His claws grazed the skin. Pain flashed white. Mia screamed. And before I could do anything, that sound. That gunshot. Someone across the alley must have called the police after hearing shouting. Seattle wasn't Crescent Ridge. Wolves weren't invisible here. And Dominic, with his rage and glowing eyes, looked like a threat most humans would recognize instantly. The shot wasn't meant for us, a warning. Fired skyward, but it was enough to break the moment. Dominic froze. His grip loosened. His gaze flicked to Mia, then to me, then to Adrien, then to the building edges where civilian silhouettes started gathering. Cornered Alpha wasn't brave. He was calculating. He realized he couldn't win. Not here. Not now. This isn't over, Dominic hissed. You're mine, Elias. You always were. Not anymore, I said quietly. And not ever again. He looked at Adrien one last time, something dark and furious twisting behind his eyes. Then he vanished down the emergency stairs. And just like that, the storm was gone. But consequences, those didn't vanish so easily. Mia clung to me, sobbing. Adrien cupped my face with trembling hands, his composure slipping now that the danger had passed. Are you hurt? Elias, talk to me. I'm fine, I whispered, though I wasn't sure it was true. You're bleeding. It's just a scratch. He exhaled shakily. That's not a scratch. Sirens approached. People peeked over railings. The city buzzed with the aftermath of a scene too dramatic even for a rooftop in Seattle. And standing in the center of it, Adrien looked at me like I was something fragile he was terrified to break. You don't have to go through this alone, he said softly. I believed him. I shouldn't have. Because the world Adrien came from, the world of billion-dollar companies, cameras, investors, headlines collided violently with the world I ran from. And I was about to learn that choosing someone wasn't the same as being ready for what choosing them meant. Let's get you inside, he murmured. I nodded. But as he led me toward the elevator, fingers intertwined with mine, something deep in my chest shifted. Felt like the first breath after drowning. Felt like the start of something real. And it felt like trouble. Because loving a human was already dangerous. But falling for Adrien Kincaid, a man powerful enough to shake the country and gentle enough to hold my cracked pieces, was a different kind of danger entirely. A danger I was already too far into to run from. Not again. Not this time. Adrien insisted on taking me to his apartment. Not mine. It wasn't a suggestion, and strangely, I didn't mind. After everything that happened on the rooftop, the idea of returning to my tiny one-bedroom place with its thin walls and flickering hallway lights felt unsafe, exposed, too easy for Dominic to find again. Adrien's home, though, was an entirely different universe. The elevator opened directly into his penthouse, the city stretching beneath the floor-to-ceiling windows like a glittering ocean. Soft amber lights warmed the furniture. The air smelled faintly of cedar and roasted coffee, like the lingering imprint of his mornings. Mia sat curled on the couch with a blanket, shaking despite the heater being on. Adrien brought her a mug of peppermint tea and placed a box of tissues beside her like he'd done it 1,000 times. He knelt down, meeting her eyes levelly. "You're safe here," he said. "No one is going to hurt you. I promise." She nodded, though her breath hitched. I stood nearby, torn between gratitude and the kind of emotional exhaustion that makes your bones feel hollow. When Adrien straightened, his eyes flicked to my arm where Dominic's claws had grazed. Blood had dried along my skin, faint but unmistakable. "You need that cleaned," he said quietly. "Sit." It wasn't a command, more like the voice of someone who didn't know how not to care. I sat. He returned a moment later with a first aid kit so well organized it was borderline alarming. Kneeling in front of me like I was a patient he refused to refer out. "You don't have to," I began. "Let me," he murmured. His fingers brushed my skin. The contact burned not with pain, but with a warmth I didn't understand. I sucked in a breath. He noticed but didn't comment. His touch was gentle, the way people touched fragile things, as if he feared pressing too hard would shatter me. It made something deep inside my chest tremble. "Does this happen often?" he asked softly. "No," I said. "Just once. Tonight." His jaw tightened just slightly. The expression didn't match someone used to boardrooms and stock markets. It matched someone who hated seeing another person bleed. "I've seen the way he looks at you," Adrien said. "Even before tonight." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He dabbed antiseptic onto the scratch, and for a moment his eyes flicked up, meeting mine. "You think I didn't notice the shadows on your face? The way you looked over your shoulder? The way you startled every time the door opened?" Heat rose beneath my skin, not embarrassment, more like being exposed too gently. "I didn't want to burden anyone," I said quietly. "You wouldn't," he said. "Not me." The words sat heavy between us, soft but certain. When he finished bandaging my arm, he sat back slightly, exhaling a breath that looked like he'd been holding it since the moment he saw Dominic grab me. "You should get some rest," he said. "Both of you." "I can take the guest room," I said quickly. "Mia can stay here." "You're not going anywhere near a door tonight," Adrien said. "You take the master bedroom." I almost choked. "I can't take your bed. You're injured, exhausted, and barely staying upright," he said. "The bed is closer to the bathroom and it locks. I'll take the couch." "It's your house," I murmured. "And you're my guest." There was a quiet finality to it. I didn't have the strength to argue. He led Mia to the guest room first, making sure she drank her tea and had water. She clung to his arm the way scared teenagers cling to any adult who actually steps up. Adrien didn't seem to mind. He came back to me, hesitating just a fraction. "Come on. You need sleep." But before I could follow him, something inside me broke. "Adrien," I whispered, "why are you doing this?" His expression softened in a way that made my heart twist. "Because you were standing on a rooftop with someone who wasn't seeing you as a person," he said. "He was seeing you as something he owned, and I couldn't walk away from that." I swallowed hard. "You barely know me." "Maybe," he said, "but nothing about any of this feels like barely." And it didn't, and that terrified me. He walked me to his bedroom, a room that smelled faintly of him and soft detergent. The bed was large, draped in charcoal gray linen. The city glowed through the curtains. "You can lock the door if that makes you feel safer," he said quietly. "Do you want me to?" I asked before I could stop myself. Something flickered in his eyes, something warm, something careful. "No," he said, "but you've had enough taken from you. Tonight you choose." My throat tightened. I didn't lock the door. I fell asleep the second my head hit the pillow. But peace never lasts long in the life of someone who's been running. I woke to the faint sound of voices, low, urgent, muffled. Adrien and someone else. For a half second, fear shot through me. Dominic? Had he found us? But then the scent hit me, clean cedar and rain. Adrien. Still reassuring. Still steady. I slipped quietly from the bed, padding toward the door. It was cracked open just slightly, and through it, I could see Adrien on the phone in the living room, the skyline framing him like a silhouette against the glass. His tone was sharp, controlled, dangerous in a way I hadn't heard before. "I don't care if the board is panicking," he snapped. "A human being was attacked on my property. You think I'm worried about optics? Handle it." Pause. "No, I'm not filing a police report yet, because things aren't that simple." Another pause. "I said handle it, Samuel, and pull everything you can on Dominic Hale. Every arrest, every PAC affiliation, every boundary violation. If he has a history, I want to know." My breath caught. Adrien wasn't just helping. He was preparing for war. He ended the call and ran a hand through his hair, shoulders tight. When he turned, he saw me. "Elias," he said softly. "You should be resting. You're digging into him. I'm protecting you. You shouldn't be involved. You involved me the moment you took my hand." The way he said it quiet, certain made heat curl under my skin. "You don't understand how dangerous Dominic can be," I whispered. "You don't understand how stubborn I am," Adrien countered. I looked away, but he stepped closer, careful, as if approaching an injured animal. "Come here," he said gently, and I did. He stopped a foot from me, close enough that the warmth of his chest brushed the cold weight in my lungs. "You didn't do anything wrong tonight," Adrien murmured. "And you shouldn't feel guilty for someone else's violence." I closed my eyes, letting his words settle where fear had lived for too long. "Adrien," I whispered, "he won't stop. Neither will I." Those 3 words anchored something inside me. But moments like that don't last forever. The next morning, everything changed. Mia was gone. A note sat on the kitchen counter in her handwriting, shaky and smudged. "I'm sorry," Dominic texted. "He said he'd leave Elias alone if I went with him. I have to protect you both. Please don't follow me." My vision tunneled. Adrien picked up the note, jaw clenching so hard I thought it might crack. "He's escalating," Adrien said, voice dark with a fury I had never heard. I grabbed my jacket. "I have to go after her." "You're not going alone," Adrien said immediately. "Adrien, no," he said, stepping in front of the door. "This isn't just pack politics anymore. This is kidnapping. This is coercion. And I'm not letting you walk into a trap. I don't have a choice. Then we'll go together." I stared at him, shocked at how easily he said we. "You have a company to run," I muttered weakly. "I have a person to protect," he said. "A kid. And you." The heat that hit my chest was staggering. But before I could respond, his phone buzzed again, a text. This time, he looked at it. His face went still. Then he turned the screen to me. A photo. Dominic. Mia. A warehouse I recognized, an old lumber mill outside Crescent Ridge. And a message. "Come home, Elias, or she pays the price." My blood turned to ice. Adrien's voice was low and lethal. "We leave in 10 minutes. My heart pounded. "Adrien, you don't understand. If you go with me, he'll see it as a challenge. A human standing between him and his Omega? He'll what?" Adrien asked. "Make a threat? Try force? Elias, he already crossed that line. He could hurt you." Adrien stepped closer until we were almost touching. "It's not your job to protect me," he murmured. "Not from this. Not from him. I can't lose anyone else," I whispered. "You won't," he promised. His hand brushed mine, not a grab, not a claim, but an anchor. "Let me be there," he said softly. "Let me stand with you." I shut my eyes, breathing through the chaos in my chest. Dominic had taken too much already. I wasn't letting him take this too. "Okay," I whispered. "We go together." Adrien nodded, once a silent vow. And as we headed for the door, for the danger, for the past I'd spent years running from, a thought hit me so hard it nearly knocked the air from my lungs. I wasn't scared of Dominic anymore. I was scared of how much I needed Adrien. The drive toward Crescent Ridge felt like slipping back into a version of myself I thought I'd buried the day I ran from my pack. The road wound through dense forests and fading daylight, shadows stretching long across the pavement. Adrien kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting near the gearshift, knuckles tight with restrained fury. You don't have to watch the road like it's going to bite you, I murmured after a while. It already has, he said. Just not in the way I expected. Despite everything, the fear, the urgency, the aching dread twisting my insides, I almost laughed. He didn't smile, but his shoulders loosened just enough to breathe. We crossed into wolf territory with no ceremony, no signs. I knew the moment it happened. My skin prickled with awareness. The latent instincts I spent months suppressing rising like a tide. A human wouldn't notice anything different. But wolves? Wolves felt the line in their bones. Adrien glanced at me. You okay? Yes, I said, though the truth was complicated. Returning to Crescent Ridge felt like walking back into a burning building to retrieve a photo album necessary, but painfully symbolic. Mia needed me. That was the only part that mattered. We turned down the old logging road near the abandoned lumber mill. It was quiet, too quiet even for wolf territory. The kind of stillness that wasn't natural. The kind that suggested eyes in every shadow. Adrien parked behind a cluster of overgrown brush. We walk from here. Adrien. I hesitated as he stepped out of the car. Elias, he said calmly. I'm going with you. That's final. His determination hit me with an odd warmth. I nodded. No point arguing with a man who could stare down CEOs and alphas with equal confidence. We moved quietly along the dirt path, branches crunching underfoot. The mill loomed ahead, a tall, decaying structure, its broken windows like hollow eyes. A single yellow light glowed from somewhere inside. I smelled Dominic before I saw him. Anger, possessiveness, desperation. It didn't surprise me. Desperate men did stupid things. Desperate alphas destroyed entire lives. We stepped inside. The air was damp and cold, dust floating through beams of light that slipped between the cracked boards. Mia was tied to a chair in the center of the room, wrists scraped, cheeks wet with tears. She looked small, terrified. Mia, I breathed. Her head snapped up. Elias. But before I could reach her, a shadow moved behind one of the support beams. Dominic stepped out. He looked unhinged, eyes glowing faintly gold, hair messy, breathing uneven like he'd been pacing for hours. But the worst part wasn't the way he looked. It was the way he looked at me, like the world owed him something, like I owed him something. I knew you'd come, he said. You always come back. No, I said, stepping between him and Adrien without thinking. This ends tonight, Dominic. His gaze moved to Adrien and hardened. You brought him. You're human. The word dripped with disgust. He's not here for you, I said. He's here for Mia. And for me. Dominic's jaw clenched. You think I'm going to let some outsider interfere in pack matters? In our bond. There is no bond, I said quietly. There hasn't been one for a long time. His eyes flashed. You can't break fate. This wasn't fate, I whispered. This was control. Dominic's expression cracked, something raw flickering through his eyes. Pain, rage, fear. I knew that look too well. You were supposed to be mine, he whispered. I was supposed to be free, I said. And I am. His face twisted. No, not while you're with him. He lunged. I didn't even have time to shout. Dominic moved faster than any human could track. But Adrien didn't fall back. He didn't run. He stepped forward. Dominic swung. Adrien dodged. Barely. The sound of impact echoed through the mill as Dominic's fist struck the support beam instead, splintering the wood. You shouldn't be here, Dominic growled at Adrien. You're out of your depth. Maybe, Adrien said, breath steady. But I'm here anyway. Dominic roared and lunged again. This time he caught Adrien's arm, twisting it behind his back. Adrien grunted, face contorting in pain. I moved. I didn't think. Didn't plan. Instinct took over, the instinct I'd spent years ignoring. The part of me that wasn't Omega, wasn't weak, wasn't small. I grabbed Dominic's shoulder and yanked with a force I didn't know I still had. He stumbled just enough for Adrien to wrench himself free and fall back. Dominic turned on me, breathing hard, something wild burning in his eyes. You would fight me for him? He demanded. I would fight you for myself, I snapped. For Mia. For anyone you think you can own. He stared at me, chest heaving. Then he laughed. It was a broken sound, half fury, half disbelief. You're choosing him over me, he said. A human. A nobody. Don't talk about him like that, I said, voice trembling. Then how should I talk about him? Dominic snarled. He has no claim, no right, no bond. He's nothing. He's everything you're not, I said. Dominic froze. My words hit him harder than any punch could. I saw it, the flicker of realization, the way his posture sagged, the way his breath faltered. You're really gone, he whispered, voice cracking. Aren't you? Yes, I said. He looked at Mia then, eyes empty, and something changed. A long, dark thread snapped inside him. Take her, he said quietly. Take her and go. I blinked. What? I didn't come here to hurt her, he said. Or you. I came here because I thought you needed saving. From the world. From yourself. You don't save people by caging them, I said softly. He swallowed, throat bobbing. I know. For the first time, he looked truly, utterly lost. Dominic, I said gently. Let her go. He nodded once, a small, defeated gesture, but real. I rushed to Mia, untying her hands. She threw her arms around me, sobbing into my shirt. Adrien approached us carefully, eyes still sharp, ready for anything. Dominic watched him with resignation rather than rage. I loved you, Dominic said finally, voice barely audible. I know, I said, but love isn't possession. His eyes shimmered not with gold, but with something human, something broken. Go, he whispered, before I change my mind. We left. I held Mia close, guiding her through the mill's dark halls. Adrien stayed at my side, steps steady, shoulders tight with protective tension. We reached the car. Mia climbed into the back seat, exhausted but safe. Before I got in, Adrien touched my arm lightly. I turned. You okay? He asked quietly. I should have lied, but something inside me cracked open. No, I said, but I will be. Adrien's expression softened relief, fear, something warmer. I'm sorry, I whispered. You shouldn't have had to be part of this. He shook his head slowly. Elias, I walked into this because I wanted to, and because you matter. The words hit me harder than any punch Dominic threw. When we drove back towards Seattle, Mia fell asleep quickly. Adrien kept glancing at me, checking for signs I was unraveling. He didn't hover, didn't push, he just stayed close enough to reach if I needed him. And I did. I really did. Hours later, we arrived at his penthouse again. The city felt safer this time, not because it was different, but because I wasn't alone. Mia settled on the couch with a blanket, exhausted but calm. Adrien made tea for her and sat quietly nearby until she fell asleep again. Then he turned to me. Elias, he said, voice soft. You don't have to talk. You don't have to explain. But I need to know if you're okay with me being here. With all of this. I stepped closer without thinking. Maybe because I was tired. Maybe because I was done running. Maybe because some part of me knew that for once, choosing someone wouldn't destroy me. I met his eyes. I'm okay with you being here, I said. I want you here. His breath caught. And, you're not scared of what comes next? He asked, voice barely a whisper. I'm terrified, I admitted. But I'm more terrified of going through it without you. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in his composure, a warmth blooming across his face. He lifted a hand, slow, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His fingers brushed my cheek. Elias, he murmured, I don't want to rush you, or ask for anything you're not ready to give. You're not asking, I whispered. You're just here. Is that enough? Yes, I breathed. More than enough. He leaned in slowly, painfully slowly, and I met him halfway. The kiss wasn't desperate. It wasn't wild. It wasn't the kind of passion born from chaos. It was soft, warm. A promise whispered against the skin. A beginning. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "You're safe," he murmured. "With me, you're safe." And for the first time in years, I believed it. Weeks passed before things settled fully. Mia stayed with us until we arranged a safe place for her far from pack politics. Dominic never contacted us again. Rumor had it he left Crescent Ridge entirely, stepping down from leadership, choosing solitude over power. And me? I learned how to breathe again. Some mornings, I found Adrien already awake, working on his laptop, coffee steaming on the table beside him. He always looked up when I entered, always smiled in that quiet way that made my chest ache. Some evenings, we stood on his balcony, watching the city lights flicker. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't need to. And some nights, when the weight of my past pressed too hard, he held me without asking for anything in return. One night, as I leaned against his shoulder, the sky painted in streaks of pink and gold, Adrien said softly, "You know, I never believed in fate." I smiled. "Me neither. But," he continued, turning slightly so he could meet my eyes, "if fate brought me you, maybe I could reconsider." I felt my heart trip just a little. "You didn't find me because of fate," I whispered. "You found me because you kept ordering coffee from a place with terrible pastries." He laughed, a sound that felt like home. "Well," he said, "I'd say it was worth it." I leaned in closer, resting my head against him. "Yeah," I murmured. "Me too." And just like that, with the city humming below us and his warmth wrapped around my ribs like a quiet miracle, the chaos faded. The fear eased. The past softened. I wasn't an omega running from a storm anymore. I was a man learning how to love again. And this time I wasn't afraid of the future. Not when Adrien Kincaid was standing in it with me. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.